Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to break free from the chains you place so twisted with just enough space so we slaves feel safe. Wait, no, that's not right. Give me your tired, your poor, I'll pray for him, but not at my door. Shit, get off my porch. Get a job. God is good, I'll pray for you. That's not right either. Give me your money. Give me your guns, your bombs, your phallic and long-standing patriarchy, monopoly, pop, pop, pop 'em off, one round for the moms and pops, the little guys and wistful girls, shots, bottoms up. Let the flag unfurl on bodies younger than the caskets you put 'em in. Stand at attention, but don't pay attention. Shit, you're too broke to pay anything, too tired to listen so you won't know what you're missing. Your rights, your life. Struggle and strive, run along to the rat race. Life's nice in a big cage if you don't look at the bars. Keep your eyes on the stars. An American dream hanging from the beams of this foreclosed home. A wounded vet whose soul you ripped at the seams. Tattered and bleak, wrapped in a flag just as much so. But hold your head high, fill your mind with a puffed up pride, deride the dissenters, just jealous of the 1%ers. Work hard while you're played hard. Have faith, have faith. Have faith that one day you'll make enough to pay back your own soul, all the goals that you scribbled in a language unknown because you never spoke, the hope so remote. Could you live this life like you wanted to? Like it was all you had? Like you couldn't get him next time and after life is just after life? Like a fire that flickers and dies, what do you burn for? Is your flame constricted, made lame by a social construct, a pantomime desire to be sane, to seem sane? Or will you burn through that bullshit, torch that facade, lay waste to the waste of a generation, sick and tired from misuse and apathetic disdain? It doesn't have to be this way. Give us your tired, your poor. There's so much more that we can do than recite a poem, throw 'em a nickel, and feel like we did a good deed. Indeed, those of us we have a moral obligation to get fucking angry, bury complacency, dig to our passion, refashion the story, pull down the smokescreen, face to this greedy beast, and scream. Don't whisper your way through one more day of this lifelike charade. You are not yours to find, but to create. Paintbrush or pencil, drum kit or stencil. I don't give a shit what you play, as long as you see that we're all in the same game. Rigged, and I'm tired of dancing on strings. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. We are all yearning to breathe free. Whether your chains are made from dollar signs and bottom lines, or a caste system carved in stone on a fat cat's throne. Lady Liberty wasn't meant as a symbol of irony, juxtaposing a capitalist piracy. You weren't meant to be a slave, so drugged up and propagandized that your chains feel like proper nice bow ties. Before you choke on these lies, breathe deep and rise. The tired and poor are the only things still American made, and if you feel like that's more than just a little bit of a shame, come with me now. From tweets to marching in the streets, this is Act Out. Welcome to Act Out. I'm Eleanor Goldfield, and this is your tipping point. And this is New York City. I'm so happy to be in this city, it's almost difficult to keep a straight enough face to do the show. But hey, that's one of the main points of Act Out, to not only show you what people are doing to counter the counterproductive demise of our hearts, souls, and minds, but also to show you that it's one hell of a good time. So without further ado, here's our special New York special, a bagel, pizza, and Subway steam-fueled snapshot of a few of the creatives fighting the good fight. From the underground to ground zero. Take a look. Okay, so we are at a very impromptu interview spot with Jilly Ballistic, who we were just down in the subways with, capturing her doing her awesome art. So I just have to ask you real quick. Thank you for joining us, first of all. Thank you for stepping outside. So it is. How do you scope out your spots?
It's basically just commuting day to day. There's the subway's my way to get around New York City. So I don't tune out when I get down there. I'm actually really absorbing my environment. So I'm aware of not only who's around me, but the ads and the car, inside the car, the platform, the architecture. So I'm taking it all in as I'm just going about my business, really.
Yeah, I noticed that every time we got to a stop, you sort of leaned out the door and looked to see what.
Yeah.
So, what is there anything in particular that catches your eye? I know that today you said that there was a specific piece and you were looking for something very specific. Do you do the piece first, or do you see something that catches your eye that influences the piece?
It works both ways. If there's an ad or there's a particular platform, a particular subway stop that's kind of speaking to you, there's something unique about it, or that stands out, I'll keep it in mind. I'll make a mental note of it, and I'll do some research, and I'll look through thousands and thousands of photographs to find that right image that will interact with that site-specific area. And sometimes the reverse is true. It's like as I'm going through all of these images, something will speak to me and say, just keep me in mind, and I'll have that in the back of my head. And sometimes that'll happen where I'm out and about saying, that's a perfect spot for that one image that I saw, and they have to be united, So
How frequently do you go out, and how frequently do you sort of switch up your images?
I go out maybe every other day. It's a lot. It's highly addictive. So if you get into graffiti or street art or subway art or whatever you want to call it, it's highly addictive, and you will go down that rabbit hole.
So I'm curious, how did this start? Like, did you start doing the art pieces and then you didn't really know where to put them, or did you start by going out and saying, I want to put something out in the subway? How did this start?
It started years ago in a very traditional manner. I actually worked with spray paint, which a lot of street artists start with, the markers, acrylic paint, spray paint, house paint, anything like that. I still consider myself a short story writer, but that's how it started. I just wanted to get my short stories out there, so I would spray paint excerpts of my fiction, also in site-specific areas where I felt it was right for that sentence, or that phrase or whatever.
So then you started with words, and then it became images, and of course images are very powerful and speak to a lot of words as well. Do you still do words, or are the short stories now sort of living inside the images that you do?
That's a great comment. Yeah, I still feel like I'm telling a story with the characters we put up tonight. The little girl, the guy sitting on the bench. There's something not spoken but also spoken with that. But there's also text, like the fake digital intervention that we did on top. That's text as well. Yeah. So I mean, it's just working with your environment, getting creative, and not being afraid to go out there and say something.
So I'm curious as well, where do you get the inspiration for, like, where did the gas mask image come from?
Yeah. I kind of started using repeated, like on a consistent basis, early 2014, late 2013, and it's in conjunction with like a really weird birthday celebration of chemical warfare, 1914. So it's like the centennial. It was the centennial of chemical warfare being introduced, not only on soldiers but on, civilian populations. So I thought, that it was my weird way of saying, happy birthday, happy birthday, humanity, and that's basically what I did. I went from World War I, World War II, every now and then, something a little bit more modern, but the older images juxtapose against a modern ad or all this color that we're saturated with. That seemed to make a really good statement. So it was my own weird happy birthday. That's how it started.
I like that. That's very cool. Very unique. Where can people go to find out more about your art and what you do?
I have no website, so don't look for a website. That's not. There's plenty on social media. It's on Instagram. It's on every app. Just search Jilly Ballistic. You'll find me.
And if people see your art, is there like a hashtag or something they should tag?
Just hashtag Jilly Ballistic, one word, or hashtag JillyB.
Okay, we are here in New York City with Anthony Freda. So let's jump right in. What came first, art or politics, or are they inseparable?
Originally art, but to me now they're inseparable. I always was gravitated towards art because I had a natural affinity towards it, and then I kind of put politics on top of it as another layer to give meaning to my work as I became more politically aware. And I realized the power that images can have, not just to make a pretty picture, but to make a statement and to, you know, fight the establishment or rally a cause or rally people towards something that's outside of themselves.
So, as a political artist, how do you feel? What do you feel the role of art is in socio-political change?
Well, I think propaganda is an art. And I think of myself as an anti-propagandist. I'm using the same tools that the establishment uses to divide us and to get us in line with their ideas and get us in line to kind of make our consent, to conform our opinions and to manufacture our consent. This is the power of an image, and it's been used throughout time to promote hatred and to promote division. So I'm trying to flip it on its head and do the same in the opposite fashion. Being aware that your tribal instinct is being manipulated, by the choice of the establishment, the stories that they pick and the stories that they put on the news and obsessively promote. Your opinion is being manufactured, and you need to be aware of that. So the second a lie comes out, or the second a propaganda piece comes out, I'll counter it with a meme, an image combined with words, because people have short attention spans these days. So it has more effect than a story sometimes, where you can just have a simple image where it has a picture and a statement, and you combine those and you get it out there to as many people as you can. And we have to fight immediately and get a counter propaganda with anti-propaganda, and that's what I'm doing.
Talk a little bit about some of the places where your art is. For example, I know that one of your pieces ended up in the 9/11 museum, the questions piece. Isn't that a bit like having your Mickey Mouse piece like in Disneyland? Like, what were you expecting it to end up there?
No, it was actually a challenge I sent to the museum. I said, you can't have a 9/11 museum without the 9/11 truth movement being represented in some way. You're etching in stone this official narrative that really hasn't been verified yet. So it's in there. It's in part of the permanent collection now. And this is ways we can get in the inside of establishment propaganda museums. And it's just a little chink in their armor. It's a little way to get in there and have some balance to the official narrative. Because time and time again, we see the official narrative is not true. They lied to us about Gulf of Tonkin. They lied to us about, they said nobody's spying on you. They lied to us about the pretext that took us to war with Iraq. Now we're just finding out recently that they lied to us about what happened with Osama bin Laden, the death of Osama bin Laden. Surprise, surprise. So we have to challenge these official narratives at every point because they are discredited. They need to be called every time they put something out there, and that's what our job is as artists and activists, I think, is to really be anti-propagandists.
So how quickly, you talk about, as soon as something comes out, you're there with a meme. And I saw, recently I saw your Hillary, the H with the fighter jet. How quickly are you able to make these pieces, and what's your process?
Well, not quick enough. Everything happens so fast. It's unbelievable. I get an idea, the next day, and it's already an old news story. So I try to really be on top of it, and I try to get stuff out as quickly as I possibly can. But it takes time to create these images. But by using digital shortcuts for my political work, I'm able to turn things out pretty quickly. And I've developed a shorthand for just combining and juxtaposing imagery. And I try to use humor because, otherwise you just sound like a jerk. Nobody wants to listen to you. And you push people away more than you bring them in. So I love that quote by Oscar Wilde. If you're going to tell people the truth, you better make them laugh or they'll want to kill you. So you need to balance these things, because if you're too just preachy and didactic and too serious, you're going to push people away. So, and we're talking about serious things. So there's a balance. You have to be serious, but at the same time, be a little cheeky and have some humor in there. And I think when you interject that into it, that people are more willing to respond to it.
Like, okay, I understand that I can't turn on CNN or ABC or Fox News. Like, what do I do now? Like, what's the next step in this evolution?
I would go to alternative sources, and I would, you make up your own mind. You look at the official narrative, And then you look at the alternative sources and you see who is promoting war, who is promoting a police state, who is promoting tyranny, who is promoting taking your rights away. Just being aware of these things first and then get mad. You got to get mad. I know you're mad. And that's good. Get mad. You know, everybody says, oh, calm down. No, why are you so pissed off? Everybody says to me, because they're degrading us as human beings. They don't have no respect for us. Obama says there is no domestic spying program when it's the most invasive domestic spying program in human history. They just expect us to just lie down and believe the lie and just roll over. Well, I'm not going to roll over, and you're not going to roll over. And we all need to have that spirit, because that spirit will save humanity. So awareness and get mad. Get mad and question the official narrative always.
Now, for political or for artists, what would you say to artists? Because I've gotten this quite frequently in my interaction with musicians and artists and things like that. I'm just not political. What would you say to them, and how can they just get out of that mind frame? Because really, artists are the ones that will push socio-political change. What would you say to them when they say I'm not political?
Well, I think there's room for both. I mean, you look at a guy like Picasso. One of his greatest paintings is considered Guernica, which is an anti-war painting. It was done about, during World War II. That's actually the prelude to World War II. That happened in Spain, in the town in Guernica. And that was like the warm-up for World War II. And it's a brilliant masterpiece. Now, all his work wasn't anti-war work or political work, but he did it. Goya, the same thing. You know, a lot of great artists, you can do both, but you should, if you're a person of conscience, you have to go where your conscience takes you. You have to go where logic and your conscience, and these are important things. And like I say, we're in a war. We're in a war of information, a war that we can wage now that we have this platform, where it used to be just a top-down platform. Now, one person can get online and have their work seen by millions. So you have this tool that's never been afforded to people in human history. You need to take advantage of it. If you're an artist, if you're a musician, if you're a writer, whatever you are, you know, all your work doesn't have to be political. You go where your muse takes you, but at the same time, I think you have a responsibility as a human being, as an earthling, you know. If you have a conscience, and most artists are the people who have conscience. I've noticed they're the people who see these things. They can see through things that most other people can't. And I'm not trying to elevate artists as, well, we're better than everybody, but you know what? We're looking at the world through a different lens. So we're the first ones to see the lies, the first ones to see the deceptions, the first ones to see the propaganda. And we're in tune to it for whatever reason. So it's our responsibility, it's incumbent upon us to use that intuition and use it in a positive way to help humanity.
So we are here with Alex Chowaniec, an artist based in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And we're in her studio right now, which is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's just go ahead and start off. You've done a lot of art in several different mediums, and some very overtly political, like this and the raw/war. I'm curious, how do you see your art fitting into activism, or do you feel like your art sometimes touches upon activism? Do you try to make it political? How's your workflow in that sense?
All of the work is about engaging someone in a dialogue, opening up questions, taking the time to be present to the work and understand that you're implicated in the environment around you.
So it's sort of the introspective form of activism, because activism in my mind is being aware. It's an active awareness of the world around you and of course yourself. So your art sort of takes the stance of being aware of yourself in this space, either socially or politically or even on a basal level.
Very much so, and I think in terms of other media that I've engaged with, I had the great pleasure and privilege of working as Lynn Hirschman-Leeson's producer on Women Art Revolution, which was a film that was launched in 2010 and is very critical in terms of dealing with the feminist art movement and secret histories. And I think that those secret histories and cultural histories, once again, intersect all of my work, and with the Matryoshka dolls in particular, it's once again thinking of those critical lessons from the feminist art movement, which are all about asking questions, not shutting them down, interrogating, informing oneself, creating awareness. And so for this series in particular, that was a very overt engagement of the cultural histories, particularly Russian cultural histories. They are the non-traditional Matryoshka dolls.
Which I love. It's the slamming together of non-traditional and traditional. And talking about the dolls, you say, I read on your site that it said that you wanted to question what traditional means and how that leads to the formation of cultural history. So speaking of outside of Russia, but in the U.S., how do you see artwork in the U.S. that's happening now, or it has happened, creating the history and narrative? And what do you see artists such as yourself or other artists doing to create that narrative and thereby pushing for socio-political change?
That is a very loaded question.
I know.
And very complex, many different parts. I think the thing that I would want to speak to in terms of what's going on now, I mean, first of all, I think it's important to always say history is plural, because there are simultaneous histories happening. You have to look at who's creating those histories, the formation of the histories themselves, and once again, asking questions about, who's making these decisions, what gets left in, what gets left out. And I think that also to understand the simultaneity of those histories, because I think that when you have artists who are engaging in a political dialogue, one hopes that the audience is informed or becomes informed, and that degree of intellect, that degree of engagement, I think, necessarily means that you're going to have diverging views. You're going to have conflict even on the informed, engaged side. And I think that we just have to remember that if we want to create change, if we want to fight against the critical issues that are in our cultural landscape at the moment, we need to be comfortable, I guess, with finding a way to support each other and not to be constantly fracturing within our community. I think that's really critical.
Talking about the dolls, how did you choose the characters?
It's very important, I think, if one is going to talk about affecting history, to think of who's included. So it was critical for me to have a strong female presence. And then it was really about a reaching back through different generations. I mean, it starts quite early and right up to the present. So it was a conscious timeline and chronology. And also I wanted people that perhaps people would recognize.
Yeah.
So Gogol, Tchaikovsky, Ellen Asimova, Ivan the Terrible, Pussy Riot, as the encapsulating activism element.
Yeah, I love those. In regards to your drawings, you said, or it's written on your site, that you want to engage the viewer in the act of looking as thinking, and see drawing as a personal and a political act. Talk a little bit more about that philosophy.
Well, I think that at this moment in time, in terms of visual culture, we're so saturated with visual images, and I think that that's a fight about how we engage and receive information. And I think every day when we're sharing articles dealing with activism and so many images, there's just so much to take in. And so the idea of creating a large-scale drawing and asking somebody to stand in front of it and is a difficult thing at this moment in time. So I do consider it political to invite somebody into that space of the work and to project themselves, hopefully to see the drawing as an extension of their own body and their own memory. And in that, understand, again, that interconnectedness and those implications and that accountability in all of the decisions that we make. My goal is to communicate and to bring, it's a crazy thing to say, but to bring people to greater awareness. Because I think that whatever it is that you're taking up and that you are banding together to create change, that has to come from a deep awareness of self and others.
Fantastic. So, last question. I know you were saying earlier that you feel it's your responsibility to comment on these issues. What would you say to an artist or even somebody who's not necessarily creative in this sense, that just says, well, I'm not really political, so it's not, you don't see it in how I live or what I do? What would you say to them?
I'd say two things. One, we are all implicated. And two, quite simply, inform, ask questions, and support. Because I think, again, small decisions that you make in your everyday life about how you engage with people, where you buy things, where you source your information, how you live in this world is inherently political.
Special thanks to Keith Ward from Art with Teeth for bringing some of this amazing art to my attention. You are a true connector, my friend, and I recommend everyone check out our interview with him and check out his site, a never-ending array of art with teeth. And that's our show for this week, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, we'll be back in the Devil's Den. Be sure to take a look at this last slide to connect with the artists that we covered in this week's show and to help support Occupy.com and all of the creative, investigative, and badass work the site hosts. We are a donation-run organization, 501c3, so anything you can contribute is tax deductible and hugely appreciated. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. From New York City, with this huge fucking grin on my face, good night and act out.